Hi, I'm Corey Leclair, and I'm going to be talking about deviance today and what deviance means uh, in terms of sociology and in terms of um, how we can relate that to the digital world and what deviant behavior is, who are people that we would consider deviant. And so we could start with the idea that deviance is a subjective concept. Um, it's defined by the society that you live in. Behaviors that are deviant in some societies aren't considered deviant in others. And even individuals within the societies don't consider behaviors particular to be deviant. Um, it's from one person to the next. We do know that deviance is behavior that violates social norms. And so those social norms can be different in a lot of different places. It has to be severe enough to warrant disapproval from the majority of people, I guess, to be considered deviant in most cases. A couple of examples would be like right now, tattoos and piercings, I think, are not considered deviant behavior by the majority of the society in the United States today. But that was different probably even just 10 years ago, much less 20, 30, 40 years ago. That would have been considered very deviant behavior. Not illegal behavior, but deviant behavior. Um, uh, Crime is also deviant behavior. A lot of it, some of it is not. Um, Deviant behavior in terms of crime would be something that would be considered, once again, against social norms like rape or murder or something like that. But, maybe you are speeding because you are getting to the hospital because you have somebody in your car who's sick or dying or something like that. That is breaking the law, but would it be considered driving fast in a case of an emergency be considered deviant? And I don't think it would. Um, Online deviant behavior is much the same as offline deviant behavior. We've kind of transferred our social norms over to social media platforms, and social media platforms and online platforms are relatively new compared to all of our other social constructs. So that's kind of the first thing that we've done is bring our basic values in there. So if you're bullying somebody online, that's deviant. If you're um, stealing from other people online, that could be considered deviant too. And so those are some examples of deviant behavior that is deviant socially and also uh, in offline and online. So deviance can be defined or talked about in terms of sociological theories pretty easily. It kind of fits in, and they work together to define and also describe how deviance happens. Conflict theory. Essentially, deviance is defined by the elite class in a society because the elite classes make the rules. They decide what's criminal, what's not criminal, what's accepted and not accepted. And when we talk about conflict theory, we talk about conflict between classes. And so that when they define deviant behavior and then um, persons of other classes exhibit that deviant behavior, it causes conflict. Symbolic theory, deviance is a universally understood societal phenomenon. It happens across all societies. We have commonly understood symbols and meanings. Um, uh, when you have that, then deviance can easily be observed from one person to the next. When you have those symbols that you share in common, then you have deviant behavior uh, can be understood. A lot of times, online deviant behavior is uh, people are role playing a lot of times. They don't understand exactly what they're getting themselves into when they get into these online forums and stuff, and they feel detached from it, and they're acting out some kind of deep fantasy or some behavior that they think is taboo in real and offline. They're doing it online because they think that they have anonymity. Now it's still deviant behavior, um, even if you're anonymous and nobody knows that you're doing it. If it's outside of those societal norms, it's still deviant. Um, Offline, a lot of times deviant behavior is when someone's physically harmed, or like in the case of criminal acts like murder and things like that. Um, Online, you can just get off. You don't have to be on Facebook taking bullying from somebody. If you want to disengage at that moment, you can. If you're a victim of a crime offline, if a crime is being perpetrated towards you, an assault or a murder or a rape or something like that, you don't have necessarily the choice to just end it, or to remove yourself from the situation and go get somebody and tell somebody to help you. If you're being stolen from, for example, there are ways that computer programs and your bank and these identity theft protection places will help you get your stuff back, and you can pretty much protect yourself. I had a situation where a couple of days ago where my debit card was compromised. Somebody spent $475 at a Walgreens in Connecticut, and I live in Kansas. Now, that to me would be considered deviant behavior. They stole. Um, Now, if I had $475 on me and someone ran up and grabbed it from me and took off running, it would be up to the police to kind of catch them, and maybe they could and maybe they couldn't. Online, this type of theft online, they don't even have to catch these people. I just have a understanding with my bank or a contract that I dispute the claim. I have the card in my possession at the time, and then I get reimbursed for the funds. And you can there are any number of programs that you can do to have that can mitigate those things. So there are differences in even the exact same kind of crime, like theft, versus it being done online or it being done offline, and how deviant behavior affects people online or offline. There are some differences, even though some of the behaviors are the same, uh, as far as that goes. Some of the impacts that deviant behavior can have on a store, in this scenario for this video, is that data theft online definitely can have an impact on that. And they're going to steal our data, maybe our information about our financials, our information about our employees or about our store. They're going to steal our customers' data, their financial information that we've gotten from them, and we certainly don't want that to happen. Um, Social media trolling. We have social media accounts. We can have people attempt to hack those or get into those, and then they can create a lot of damage. They can put out messages that don't reflect the way that our store feels about things. Also, fake news and rumor spreading. Somebody has a negative experience at our store, and they blow it out of proportion. They go to the rumor mill, they put it on social media, it gets out of control, and we get this negative opinion or issue coming toward us that isn't necessarily something that happened. Those kind of things can spin out of control online, so we have to be cognizant of that as well. So, just to wrap things up with deviance, we know that it's uh, basically based on subjective societal norms. It can be criminal and non-criminal. It can affect you online and offline, and it can be explained through sociological theories fairly easily. Those are some of the main points. We also know that deviance is common across all societies. We know that behavior can be deemed deviant when it is rejected by the majority of society. We know that it can be criminal or non-criminal. It can just be social. It can be just the way you dress or something like that. Historically, one deviant behavior can be considered common and not. Once deviant behavior becomes common, then it is not considered deviant anymore. And we talked about tattoos and piercings earlier, and that's an example I think is pretty good. I don't think those things are necessarily considered deviant because I don't think most of society thinks they're deviant anymore. So what is the idea of deviance changes all the time. Some things remain the same, some of those major crimes and stuff like that, but things are definitely fluid in terms of deviant behavior. Um, it can happen in a lot of small ways, like crossing the street, not in the crosswalk. That's you being a little bit defiant or deviant in that sense. Do people think in society that that's deviant behavior? I don't know if they necessarily do, but is it illegal? Yeah. Um, but it's not. It's defiant, but it's probably not deviant, and that would be the difference between those things. I don't think anybody would consider you as deviant if you chose not to use the crosswalk, and they might just say that guy doesn't want to walk between the lines. Um, Deviant behaviors change our society in good ways. Some things that would have been considered deviant maybe in the 60s, like um, racial equality or equality for the LGBTQ community, things like that, like standing up and saying you believe that a man should be able to marry a man or a woman should be able to marry a woman in the 1960s or 1950s would certainly have been considered deviant in our society. But it had to happen because those people, everybody in our society deserves the same kind of rights. And so deviant behavior can, like we talked about earlier with tattoos, it becomes not deviant over time, but deviant behavior also can force the social conversation, change things in society in a good way. That's basically my conclusions on deviance, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.